How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Doing good. Are you being productive this morning? Are you having
I'm
a
trying to.
yeah?
Absolutely. Yep. Got
Um,
up, pressed a shirt, got dressed for work like I do every day.
so is that what you do? Do you get up and get dressed like you're
I
really going to
have
go to work?
to. Yeah, that's what's working for me, I think. So I'm trying to set some good boundaries. I think one of the things I'm struggling with is that, work life is one
Yeah.
and the same now.
Hmm.
And so I try to go to work at 7:30 every day. I try to dress for work in business casual and
I have to say my work time has gotten a little bit later.
mm,
I don't go to work at like 8. I probably go around 8:45 ish.
okay, okay.
After I've had a couple of cups of coffee, I do an extra cup. It
Mm,
kind of keeps me going all day long.
yeah.
So just waiting for a few folks to get in here, and we'll get started. But yeah, I do you have like a separate room that you go to, or I have to have like a room so that I can close the door at the end of the day?
Yeah, yeah. So we live in a loft. It's a big open space, but we do have a little kind of upstairs office that had become kind of our junk room. It's where we were dropping off all the half-done projects and stacks of mail and things that needed to be filed. So when I realized we were going to be in this for a little bit, I had to stop and sort of clean up that space and carve out some space. So I think it's really important to have a space. It would be great to have a door.
Yeah.
I have a little upstairs, and so I make a point of kind of coming up downstairs, for lunch every day and going upstairs in the morning. And I think that's important if you can carve it out to kind of have that kind of space.
Yeah, it's helped me to be able to just kind of walk away for lunch. I close the door on it
Hmm.
figuratively and literally, and it
Yeah.
does create a separation that's nice. We'll go ahead and get started.
Okay.
Karen, thank you so much for coming. I'm really excited to that you're here. Karen and I worked together years and years ago at Stanley Beeman and Sears, and now you are the practice leader, the healthcare practice leader at HOK here in Atlanta.
That's
Um,
right.
Karen is not only a registered architect, but she's also a registered interior designer. So um, she runs the gamut. She can do just about anything, just about anything.
I do like to
So
stay busy.
yeah, well, and you like to know things too.
Yes, I
You
do.
yeah.
I do. I'm definitely a learner. I enjoy any opportunity to learn something new. So
Yeah, we were talking the other day and you were like, "Yeah, I read something in the Harvard Business Review the other day." I was like, "You read People last week." I
the Harvard Business Review has some great articles. They always have.
Well, it's
They
inspired me, so I'm gonna start checking that out because it's not something that I normally read.
they
So
have a fantastic book on sort of managing yourself, which I got a lot out of that I read a few years ago. So it's
oh,
thin,
that's
tiny
great.
book.
That's great. Um, so let's just kind of jump right in. One of the things that we were talking about is how do you define success in this new environment? How are you defining your success, and how are you measuring it? And
Yeah.
talk about that.
So yeah, so when you first reached out to me, we were going to talk about some sort of tips for achieving success, and I think we've touched on a few. Kind of going to work, dressing for work, really anything that I think makes you energized and feel empowered, are all good things there. But I thought it might be helpful to kind of back up and think about what success really means right now.
Hmm.
We're in an absolutely unprecedented time. None of us have been through this before. And so I think the idea that we might be able to take where we were working in February and translate that to today is just not possible. And I know that personally I was kind of affronted with all of these articles and posts in those first week or two saying, oh, now is the time where you're going to do all these fantastic and creative things, and you're going to write a book, and this is the time to really delve into things at home. And it's a little overwhelming, right? So
Hmm.
um, there was a really powerful piece, and you're gonna tease me now. It was in the Harvard Business Review about sort of what we're all feeling right now, and it defined it that we're feeling grief. We're grieving for people who have been and lost and sick in this. We're grieving for people who have lost their jobs. We might be grieving for our children who maybe aren't getting the top quality education that we had hoped that they'd be getting right now. And so I think we're sort of feeling all these collective emotions together. But for me, it sort of helped to define it as that and understand that with it comes some panic and some fear and some concern, but there are kind of steps to move beyond all of that. So I think once we kind of had that in our mind, I think the next thing I was sort of struggling with is I wanted to define what success might look like is um, this sort of notion of balance between work and life and how intricately those are now enveloped with each other. And maybe the idea that it's okay not to thrive right now, it's okay to just survive. That can be good enough. And so there was a great piece, and I can share these links with you if anybody's interested in
Yeah.
them, in the Harvard Gazette by the director of the Office of Work Life. Her name is Nancy Kostakian. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly. She had a fantastic piece on the idea of balance. And the idea, I think we think of this work-life balance as this like illustrious thing that we're all trying to achieve. It's a thing, it's a noun. We'll know it when we get there. And she was sort of cautioning that maybe we should think of it more as a verb. And it's something we're trying to actively do. And she had a great metaphor of sort of trying to stand on one leg for a period of time, a very temporary period of time. And, most of us are blessed with enough balance that we can do that, but your body is making all of these micro adjustments all the time while you're doing that. Probably mostly subconsciously. You might wobble a little bit, but you're making these adjustments. You're trying to respond to the situation. And she has a quote, and she said, if you remain mostly upright, you're doing well enough. And so I've been thinking about that a lot. What are these micro adjustments that we make to try and achieve this balance, to try and take action towards balance as we're working here. And so, I'm very fortunate. I have a very calm work from home environment. My husband's an essential worker. He's off somewhere else. I don't have children who I'm trying to educate at the same time. But I know that as I think through our teammates and what we're all sort of expecting of each other and ourselves, I think we have to think about those micro adjustments we're making and the fact that we are not going to be the people that we were back in February. And we may not be those people again moving forward, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I think that's just a big part of it.
So do you think part of it is just showing a little more grace towards yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's one thing I've really been trying to keep in mind. I think we have the opportunity right now. In spite of all this grief, I've seen so much inspiration, and I think we have the opportunity to practice a lot of gratitude. It's only 1 in 4 Americans who have the ability to work from home right now. So, those of us who have that ability and continue our work lives are very blessed in that, and we should be grateful for that. I think it's a great time to practice some compassion and empathy. And I think it's a great time to give ourselves a little bit of grace and really think through what our expectations are of ourselves and of our teammates and give it a little bit of room.
Yeah. Talk about, because, obviously as the practice leader, you lead a team of people. Talk about what that's like in this environment. How are you, we're talking about success. How are you successfully leading a team and what things are you employing for that?
Well, I think at HOK, and I'm sure a lot of other companies, we have a lot of great technical tools and resources that facilitate that we were using previously, especially as we're a large global practice who works across offices. But I've been trying to be mindful about sort of keeping 3 key things at mind as I work with my team. So I think the first is really clear direction. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. I think it's important to sort of talk through expectations, to provide clear direction, maybe even give more feedback than we might normally. I think those are all essential right now. And to try and meet our teammates where they are, what their specific circumstances are at this moment, and make sure that our expectations for ourselves and our team is very reasonable to meet those circumstances. And then I think communicating is just essential. It's become more essential now than ever. So whether that's daily check-ins with your teammates, I try not to go a day without calling or texting somebody on the team just to see how things are going. I think now is the time probably to over communicate to really
Mhm.
be very clear. As far as moving work forward, I think it's helpful to give a lot of good examples, whether that's photographs or sketches. I think now is the time to really focus on the why we might be doing things, and really sort of uh, figure out a way to translate that teaching and that learning that we were doing in the office to a remote environment. So I feel like I'm personally spending more time, not just maybe making red lines, giving direction, but sort of explaining the why behind some of the decisions that we're making together.
Mhm.
And my goal in that is to just kind of foster a lot more connectivity between us. So I want the team to kind of know where I stand. I want them to feel comfortable coming to me with where they stand right now, and just ensure that above anything else, as we're physically distanced from each other, that we are somehow socially connected as much as we possibly can be. So there was a great quote I'd read over the last week that authenticity defeats loneliness. And I thought that was really important to keep in mind. I think it's important to model optimism to our teams, but I think it's also really important to be very authentic with them and with each other and with ourselves. It's okay to be a little fearful. It's okay to be a little uncertain. We want to diminish that as much as we possibly can and provide some good direction that leads us to some certainty, whether that's for today or for tomorrow or for the next week, as much as we possibly can. But I think it's important to be authentic to who we are as well right now and what we're feeling. And I think that's
Yeah.
okay.
It sounds like communication is a big thing day to day that I think we all work on, but it sounds
Mm-hmm.
like you're being a lot more deliberate about the communication and the quality of the communication. Do you see that carrying over two ways? Do you see that carrying over, once we've moved past this and are back in the mix of things, do you see yourself doing that the same way now in the office? And then kind of how does it translate to your clients?
Mm. I think that would be a lovely thing to aspire to, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That one of the silver linings that might come out of this would be that sort of increased communication and connection. I think that's just a huge part of design anyway, especially healthcare design. That's really what we're trying to do is to facilitate an environment where there is a high quality of communication between the patient and the provider, and between the provider and the staff. So yeah, I would love to continue a lot of this forward. I think I might have taken for granted the ability to kind of pass somebody in the kitchen and have a brief conversation
Mm,
before. And yeah, being a lot more deliberate about it now, I think would be a really wonderful thing to continue forward.
yeah.
And I think our clients are going through a lot of this too, especially in healthcare. Obviously, they're just overwhelmed with their own response to this. So I think our communication has had to be more efficient and a little bit tighter, so that we limit the amount of time that we're spending away from patient care for them as we move projects forward together. So we've got a lot of great tools. We've been doing user group meetings by WebEx, which I confess I had a lot of concern and hesitation about. I had a couple of really dark nightmares the week before, but I just said, it's okay that these aren't going to be perfect. We're still going to collect a lot of good information. We're still going to have a valuable time spent together, and we did. So I think as we try to support our clients, particularly in healthcare, that increased and more efficient communication is going to be beneficial for all.
Well, I know that the user group meetings for you, that's a particular passion for
It
you,
is. It is.
and so, as we were talking, you were saying that one of the things that you do is to really read people in the room face to face. You read their body language. You can, and I've been in some of those meetings where you can tell immediately, and for interior designers, a lot of times we're presenting finishes and whatnot,
Hmm.
and you pull out a really controversial color like a yellow green, and you can see the reaction. You can see the
Yeah.
reaction. How are you observing body language over the media that we're using now, especially when what I'm looking at right now is like a little swatch of
Hmm.
Karen.
Yeah.
It's different than sitting across from you.
It is. It is. It's hard. I think that's one of the things I've been struggling with, not only in user group meetings, but in our team meetings. One, I think it's really important that we do it by video.
Mm-hmm.
I think that prevents us from multitasking and maybe
Yep.
not paying attention. keeps us in the moment. I'm connected to you because I'm looking at you. I know that you're looking at me, so I can't be sort of looking off. So I think that's really important. But I don't know about you. I love seeing everybody on the Zoom screen, the grid, but sometimes it's a little much. Especially if you're really trying to convey something or give direction or solicit feedback. So I've been trying to switch to the speaker view as much as I can so that I'm really focused on a single person, what they're trying to convey through their body language, and I'm not sort of getting distracted by the squirrel of everybody
Yeah.
else on the screen. So I think that's really important. It is harder in these user group meetings to kind of tease things out. I'm finding I'm having to listen much more closely, which again is a wonderful thing that I should be learning, um, because I can't rely on the cues within somebody's body to kind of tell me what they're thinking. So I think it's about listening. I think it's about asking good questions, and maybe stopping talking so that you can actually hear some of this sometimes.
It's funny. Well, our time is about up.
Oh,
I'm going to
that
ask you
went
to
so
send
fast.
me those links to the articles because I want to put that in our bio so that people can go there. I think those will be really, really helpful.
Sure.
Is there anything else that you want to share? Um,
No, no. I mean, I think there's just so much good reading out there. There's a lot of reading. It can be kind of overwhelming right now, but there's a lot of good reading out there on how different industries are responding to this. I know
mhm.
that we're putting out a lot of content, everybody really is on the impact to healthcare, the impact to workplace, and it affects all of us. So I think there's a lot of good stuff out there if you're feeling a little bit alone right now.
Yeah,
Um, it's good to know that some other people are thinking about this too, that we're facing a lot of the same challenges together, and this is temporary. We
yeah.
will get through this. We will be different on the other side, but there will be an end to this, and I think we can get through it together.
That's awesome. Karen, thank you so much for taking time today. I really appreciate it. I know you're super busy running the healthcare world over there.
Well,
But
thanks for having me, Trey.
yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Trey.